We continue now at the top of Daf Mem Zayin and Beis Meseches Sukkah. This is Sukkah Daf 47b. The Gemara just brought a brisa where Rabbi Yehuda says there's a bracha on Shmini Atzeres, trying to prove that we're talking about the bracha of Shechiyanu, trying to prove Rabbi Yochanan's point that you say the bracha of Shechiyanu on Shmini Atzeres. So the Gemara says, "My lav, is it not Zman?" Rabbi Yehuda is talking about the bracha of Shechiyanu. Rashi over here says, "My lav Zman hach bracha to come Rabbi Yehuda mahi." What bracha is Rabbi Yehuda talking about? Lav hainu Zman liatzmo. He's talking about the fact that you say Shechiyanu. So the Gemara says, "Lo, no, not necessarily. Birchas Hamazon and Tefillah could be he was talking about benching. It could be he was talking about davening." Rashi over here says, "Until Shmini Atzeres, we say in davening and benching as Yom Chag HaSukkos Hazeh. V'kan as Yom Shmini Chag Atzeres Hazeh." And now you change the text, and instead you say as Yom Shmini Chag Atzeres Hazeh. That's really what he meant. Gemara says, "Hachinam mistaber." It makes sense that that's what Rabbi Yehuda was saying. Because if he was talking about Shechiyanu, Zman called Shiva Miika. Do you say Shechiyanu all 7 days? You only say it on the first day. So the Gemara says, "No, halo kasha. That's not difficult. It simply means if you don't make the bracha on the first day, so then you'll make it the next day or the day after that. So all 7 days you can apply that Shechiyanu." But the Gemara says, "Mikol makom, nevertheless, kos ba'inan." Don't you need to have a cup in order to say Shechiyanu? Rashi over here says, "Mikol makom hechim ashkachas lo zman b'chol shel moed." How are you saying Shechiyanu chol moed? Ve'afilu lo barach yom hakama. Even if you didn't make Shechiyanu on the first day, haba'ina kos shel yain. You need to have a cup of wine to say Shechiyanu. You don't have wine available to everybody on Chol HaMoed, so therefore how are you going to say it anyhow on Chol HaMoed? And so to that the Gemara says, Lema Messiah Leila Rav Nachman. Let us say maybe that this supports Rav Nachman, the Amar Rav Nachman, because Rav Nachman said, Zman Omru Afila B'Shuk, when it comes to Shechiyanu, you could say it even in the marketplace, you don't need wine. Rashi over here says, Lema Hadakatani Bracha Kol Zayin Mefarshinan Dahainu Zman. That which it says you say a bracha all 7 days, and we're assuming that's the bracha of Shechiyanu, so that's Messiah Rav Nachman Damar Omra B'Shuk Belokos. That would support Rav Nachman's opinion that you could say Shechiyanu even in the marketplace without a cup of wine. Diamrid Ba'inan Kos, because if you said you needed a cup of wine, Kos Kol Yoma Mi'ika, you have available at the ready a cup of wine every day of Chol HaMoed, doesn't make any sense. So the Gemara says, no, maybe Dilma, maybe Di'ikla Lekos. Maybe we're talking about a situation where you happen to have a cup. In other words, it could be we mean to say, you say Shechiyanu all 7 days, meaning if you didn't say it the first day, you say it the second day, etc. If you happen to have a cup of wine. If you don't have a cup of wine, then you won't say the Shechiyanu. And the Gemara continues, V'savar Rabbi Yehuda Shmini To and Lina. Does Rabbi Yehuda really hold that Shmini Atzeres requires staying overnight? V'atanya, but we learned in a brisa, Rabbi Yehuda says, Minayin lePesach Sheni, She'eino To and Lina. How do I know that Pesach Sheni does not require staying overnight? Shenemar, like the pasuk says, Ufanisa v'aboker v'alachta la'alecha. It says in the morning you're going to go back to your houses. That refers to staying overnight. Uchsiv sheishas yamim tochal matzos. And it says 6 days you're going to eat matzah. And so we make a comparison between these two psukim. These two psukim are right next to each other. As shato and shishato and lina, any holiday which has 6 days to it, which requires 6 days, so then in such a situation it requires lina. As she'eno to and shisha, but a holiday that doesn't have 6 days after it, so eno to and lina, that's not going to require any lina, and so therefore it's going to come out that Pesach Sheni is not going to require lina, and of course Shmini Atzeres also seems like it. Limu'utei mai, the Gemara says, what is this coming to exclude? Lav limu'utei nami Shmini shel Chag. Isn't this also coming to exclude Shmini Atzeres? In other words, we're excluding any holiday that doesn't have 6 days after it. And so the Gemara says, Lo, no, limu'utei Pesach Sheni dichavase. It only means to exclude Pesach Sheni because we're talking about Pesach. So we're saying on Pesach Rishon, which has 6 days following the first day of Yontiv, there you have lina. But if you don't have such a situation, so then there's no halach of lina by Pesach Sheni. But by other holidays, let's say Shavuos, let's say Shmini Atzeres, there might very well be lina, even though there's not 6 days following the Yontiv. And the Gemara says, Hachinami mistabra. Gemara says this makes sense as well. That's nan, because we learned in the Mishnah, Habikurim tu'unin karban v'shiru tnufa velina. It says bikurim, that's the first fruits that you bring to the Beis HaMikdash. They require that they have a karban. Rashi over here says you have to bring a karban shlamim together with the bikurim. They require a shir, a song. They require tnufa, that you have to wave it. And they require lina, you have to stay overnight, even though there's no 6 days that apply by bikurim. So man shamad le damar tnufa, who is the opinion that holds that you have to wave the bikurim? Rabbi Yehuda, it's Rabbi Yehuda. V'kamar ton lina, and you see that Rabbi Yehuda says that it requires lina. In other words, you see that Rabbi Yehuda says there's no 6 day requirement for lina, and therefore, again, that's going to apply that's going to apply by Shmini Atzeres as well. The Tanya, as we learned in a Brayso, Rabbi Yehuda says V'hinachto zu tenufa. It says V'hinachto, talking about the bikurim. That refers to waving the bikurim. At Omer zu tenufa weinu el hanocha mamish. You're saying it's tenufa. Maybe it really just means hanocha v'hinachto. You have to put it down. Kishor v'hinicho. No, the pasuk already says v'hinicho. Hare hanocha amor. So that already shows you they have to place it down. Hamani mekayim v'hinachto. So what does the word v'hinachto mean? Zu tenufa refers to waving it. So again, you see Rabbi Yehuda is the one who says it requires tenufa, and he is also saying there's a requirement of lina. But the Gemara continues, V'dilma Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov. How do you know it's really Rabbi Yehuda over there? Maybe it's Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov over there that's saying that it requires lina by bikurim, because he also says there's a requirement of tenufa by bikurim. The Tanya, as we learned in a Brayso, V'lokach hakohen hatena miyadecha limed ala bikurim shetaunin tenufa. It says the Kohen takes the basket from your hand. That teaches us that what is he doing? He's taking the bikurim and he's doing tenufa. Divrei Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov. This is the opinion of Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov. Rashi over here says, V'dilma ahida katani tenufa v'lina. Maybe that Brayso which talks about tenufa and lina, Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov, it's really authored by Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov. D'shamina le'nami damar tu'unin tenufa, because we hear that he also says there's a requirement of tenufa. Avol Rabbi Yehuda lo mesukma dislei Rabbi Yehuda kol she'in ton shisha ein ton lina. Maybe Rabbi Yehuda would not agree, because maybe Rabbi Yehuda holds anything that doesn't have those 6 days following the yontiv, there's also no din of lina. V'lo tilif mehacha svara didach. Therefore, you can't prove that which you're trying to prove. So the Gemara says again, maybe it's Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov. And the Gemara continues, my time with Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov. What's the reason of Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov? What is his source over here that it requires tenufa? Asya yad mishlamim. It's actually a gzeira shava. It's learned out from the word yad, because it says the word yad over here, v'lokach hakohen atena miyadecha, and it also says the word yad by shlamim. Ksiv hacha v'lokach hakohen atena miyadecha. It says over here, again by bikurim, it says miyadecha. V'ksiv hasam yadav tiviena sishay Hashem. By shlamim, it says yadav. It uses the word yad. Makan kohen aflahalan kohen umalahalan bailim afkan bailim. Just like over here we're talking about the kohen, so too there we're talking about the kohen, and just like over there we're talking about the owner, so too over here we're talking of the owner, meaning they both have to participate in both situations in the tenufa. Ha ketzad how so kohen meniach yado tachas yad bailim. The kohen places his hand under the hand of the owner of the carbon umenif, and together they wave, and that's exactly what happens by the bikurim. That's what happens by the shlamim as well. And so the Gemara continues, my have'elah. So what is the final halacha? Rashi says, my have'elah is man b'shmini. What is the halacha when it comes to shechayanu and shmini atzeres? Rav Nachman Amar omrim zman b'shmini shel chag. Rav Nachman says you do say shechayanu. Rav Sheshes Amar ein omrim zman b'shmini shel chag. And Rav Sheshes says you do not say shechayanu and shmini atzeres. V'hilchas on the halacha is omrim zman b'shmini shel chag. We do say shechayanu and shmini atzeres. And the Gemara says, Tanya Kivase de Rav Nachman. We have a brayso that supports Rav Nachman's opinion that you say Shechiyana and Shmini Atzeres. It says Shmini on the 8th day, and we'll continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Memches Amud Aleph.